Sheikh Omar Al-Rashid thought his power could hide the truth. Emily Carter believed love would protect her, but Layla Al-Rashid knew betrayal demanded blood, and in the heart of Dubai, their secret triangle exploded into a deadly tale of passion, lies, and shocking revenge. The crime scene presents a new page of crime, a new mystery, a new shock case. Emily Carter was just 23 when she landed in Dubai, carrying nothing more than 2 suitcases, a degree in international business, and an unshakable determination to make something of herself. She had grown up in a small town in Ohio, where opportunities were limited and her dreams always felt too big for the place she came from. So when she secured an internship with a prestigious global investment firm, she believed her life was finally opening up to the future she had always wanted. Dubai was overwhelming from the start. Towering skyscrapers glittered against the desert sky, supercars zipped down pristine highways, and luxury seemed to drip from every corner. Emily often felt like she had stepped onto another planet, one where the gap between rich and poor was blinding, and ambition alone might not be enough to survive. Still, she pushed forward, eager to learn and to prove herself among executives who were older, sharper, and far more experienced. Her internship placed her at the heart of the company's operations, where deals worth millions were negotiated daily. For Emily, every moment was a test. Late nights preparing presentations, early mornings chasing approvals, and endless hours trying to decode the subtle power games in the office. She was surrounded by colleagues who seemed polished and untouchable, but her hunger to stand out kept her going. Amid the pressure, she noticed how often influential figures drifted through the building, men in tailored suits who seemed to control entire industries with a single phone call. The most prominent of them all was Sheikh Omar Al-Rashid, a figure of wealth and power whose name carried weight beyond the walls of the firm. Emily had only heard whispers about him, stories of vast business empires, political connections, and an influence that stretched across continents. She never expected that her path would cross his in any meaningful way. Sheikh Omar Al-Rashid was the kind of man who filled a room without ever raising his voice. In his late 40s, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had been surrounded by wealth and power his entire life. To Emily, he seemed untouchable, a figure who belonged to glossy magazine covers and high-profile business summits, not the same conference tables where she sat nervously taking notes. Their first interactions were professional, Omar reviewing reports, asking sharp questions, and dismissing ideas with a simple glance. Yet, Emily noticed something unusual. His attention lingered on her longer than on anyone else. At first, she thought it was nothing. She was the youngest in the room, the intern with more energy than experience. But Omar's glances turned into questions about her background, her family, and what had brought her all the way from America. What surprised Emily was the warmth behind his words. He listened intently when she spoke, giving her the kind of focus that powerful men rarely gave anyone outside their circle. Those small moments of acknowledgement became addictive. She found herself anticipating his presence, dressing more carefully, and rehearsing answers in her head before he even asked them. One evening, after a late meeting, Omar invited her to join him for dinner. The gesture startled her, but curiosity overpowered hesitation. That night, Emily experienced the other side of Dubai, private dining rooms, personal staff, and conversations that stretched into the early hours. Omar spoke not just about business, but about loneliness, expectations, and how suffocating the spotlight could be. For Emily, it felt like peeling back the layers of a man the world only saw as flawless. Over the next weeks, their connection deepened. The dinners multiplied, gifts began to appear, expensive handbags, jewelry, and even a car at one point. Emily's life transformed almost overnight after she agreed to Omar's proposal. What began as a whirlwind of secret gifts and hidden dinners turned into something far more binding. A marriage carried out in absolute secrecy, with only a handful of loyal insiders aware of its existence. The ceremony itself was discreet, stripped of the grandeur she had once associated with weddings. There were no photos, no family, no friends, just whispered vows in a guarded villa and a promise that her life would never be the same again. In the weeks that followed, Emily was swept into a double life that felt intoxicating yet claustrophobic. Behind closed doors, she lived like royalty. She was taken on private shopping sprees in luxury malls, driven in sleek cars that turned heads, and flown out on hidden getaways where no one would question their relationship. Omar made her feel like she was the center of his world when the doors were shut. But the moment they stepped into public, she was invisible, forced to play the role of a nameless outsider. The secrecy began to gnaw at her. She could never post pictures, never mention his name to friends, never even hint at the truth when speaking to her family back home. Every time she saw Omar in public beside Layla, his elegant wife of 20 years, it was like a knife twisting in her chest. She was the secret shadow, hidden in luxury but deprived of recognition. Whispers in the household only made it worse. Servants exchanged glances when she appeared, and colleagues at the firm began questioning why she received special treatment. Emily convinced herself it was love that kept her enduring the isolation, but deep down, she felt the walls closing in. The dream of being cherished had turned into a gilded cage, one where every indulgence came with the cost of erasing her existence. And though she tried to silence the unease, the reality of Omar's world was beginning to suffocate her with every passing day. Layla Al-Rashid had built her identity around being the perfect wife. For 2 decades, she stood beside Omar through political storms, business expansions, and the public eye's relentless scrutiny. She had wealth, status, and a reputation most women in Dubai envied. But behind the polished exterior, Layla carried a gnawing fear that Omar's restless nature would one day bring shame to their name. Her instincts sharpened when she noticed small cracks in their routine. His late-night business meetings stretched longer, his phone was suddenly off-limits, and there was a strange new fragrance on his clothes, one that didn't belong to her. Layla began piecing things together with quiet precision. She watched how Omar disappeared for hours with vague excuses, how certain staff members stumbled when she asked about his whereabouts, and how his demeanor shifted when he returned home, less attentive, less present. The man she once thought she knew entirely had become a stranger. The breaking point came when a careless detail slipped through. While reviewing some financial statements, Layla discovered expenses that didn't align with family activities: designer jewelry, luxury handbags, and a private apartment lease under a discreet company name. Her heart pounded as the truth unraveled in front of her. Omar wasn't just entertaining someone. He was sustaining an entire double life. The realization ignited a fury Layla had never known. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about humiliation. In a culture where reputation was everything, Omar's affair threatened not only her pride, but her standing in society. She could not allow herself to be made a fool in front of powerful families, rivals, and watchful eyes who thrived on scandal. Layla made a decision then, a cold and deliberate one. If Omar thought he could hide another woman in the shadows, he underestimated her resolve. She wouldn't confront him directly, at least not yet. The storm truly began when Layla finally uncovered Emily's existence, not just as a fleeting fling, but as Omar's secret wife. The revelation struck like a dagger, shattering any illusions that this was just another passing distraction. Layla had spent her life upholding her family's image, projecting strength and grace, and now she realized her husband had been living a lie that made her look powerless. The betrayal cut deeper because it wasn't just lust, it was commitment. Omar had taken vows with someone else, vows that mocked everything she had given him for 20 years. Layla's rage brewed in silence, but it wasn't the kind of anger that exploded in one reckless moment. Instead, it hardened into cold calculation. She hired private investigators under the guise of business arrangements, traced Omar's hidden apartment, and even paid off a housemaid who had seen Emily come and go. The puzzle pieces fit together, each discovery stoking her fury until the picture was undeniable. Her husband wasn't simply cheating. He was living a double life in her own city. For Emily, things were unraveling too. The glamour of secrecy had worn off, replaced by paranoia. She noticed strange cars parked near the apartment, felt the weight of eyes on her during shopping trips, and sensed the tension in Omar's voice whenever he spoke of Layla. The fairy tale she thought she'd entered was mutating into a nightmare where every step felt watched. Meanwhile, Omar underestimated the depth of the storm he had stirred. He believed his wealth and influence could shield him from consequences, that two women could live in separate worlds without colliding. But Layla wasn't a woman who accepted betrayal in silence, and Emily was far too naive to understand the deadly stakes of being the secret wife of a powerful man. As Layla tightened her grip on the truth, the walls closed in on Omar's hidden paradise. The final act of betrayal unfolded like a carefully scripted tragedy. Layla, cloaked in the calm of a woman who had already decided her enemy's fate, made her move with chilling precision. She invited Omar and Emily to the same villa under the pretense of reconciliation. Omar, desperate to maintain control, believed he could smooth things over, while Emily arrived trembling, convinced this might be her only chance to be acknowledged. What neither of them realized was that Layla had orchestrated the night as a trap, a closing chapter where love, lies, and power would collide in the most brutal way possible. The atmosphere inside the villa was heavy, almost suffocating. Layla greeted them with unnerving composure, her eyes sharp and unyielding. She laid out the evidence in front of Omar: receipts, photos, recordings, each one a dagger to his carefully crafted lies. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Emily's face drained of color as she realized the full weight of Layla's knowledge. There was no more hiding, no more fantasy of a secret paradise. The truth was laid bare, and the consequences loomed like a storm. Omar tried to assert control, but Layla's fury had already shifted into something darker, a resolve that could no longer be contained. The confrontation spiraled, voices rising, accusations flying, until the room turned violent. Accounts later pieced together suggest Layla lashed out first, years of betrayal fueling a ferocity no one expected. In the chaos, blood was spilled. First Omar's, then Emily's, leaving the villa soaked in silence where rage had finally drowned love. By morning, Dubai was buzzing with whispers. A powerful sheikh dead, an American intern found lifeless, and a wife at the center of a scandal that shattered reputations across borders. Layla didn't flee. She didn't deny it. To her, it wasn't murder, it was justice.